is that, and this is not just in my country, and this is not just in here, this is in every country I go to. Every country. I go to a restaurant, people come into the restaurant, the family comes into the restaurant, and what is the first thing they do after they sit down? They don't make eye contact. They don't chat to one another. They don't talk about what are we going to eat and what shall we share or not share. Everybody takes out their device. Have you seen this or have you not? Everyone takes out their device. And now it's not a family anymore. It's 4 or 5 or 6 individuals all staring at mirrors. And these are unusual mirrors because they're mirrors they're dynamic mirrors that show you what you want to see. These are Rahu mirrors. So these are things, it's not just a mirror that at least would let you see, oh my God, it's true. You get the face that you deserve once you turn 50. And once you turn 60 or 70, it's even more obvious. You can't pretend. 50, you can still kind of pretend. Those of us who are past 60 can't pretend anymore. But this device, and I'm using this device, let me assure you it's on airplane mode, nobody's going to call me. But I'm using this device, in my case, because it has a phone. It's very useful. You have a phone, you have you can find out what's going on in the skies, what stars, what thing. You can use it as a torch. It's a very useful device. But it's a particularly useful device if you know when to use it and when to put the thing down. If you don't know when to put it down, it's like anything else. It's like tobacco, it's like alcohol, it's like sugar, it's like salt, it's like mirchi masala, it's like anything. Anything that you can't put down, you're addicted to. And there is no addiction other than the addiction to Bhagawan that is an addiction that is going to benefit you. And even the addiction to Bhagawan may not benefit you if you are not employing that addiction in the right way. So when we talk about self-diagnosis, the place to begin is not to start to, and it's useful to be able to learn, how to take your own pulse. It's very useful. But the first thing to do is to ask yourself, the beginning of self-diagnosis is, what am I addicted to? And we are seeing, you all know, I expect that in this, all around the world, but particularly in this country, diabetes is now an epidemic. And there are children who are 12 years old, who are 10 years old, some even 8 years old, who have the kind of diabetes, not autoimmune diabetes, but the kind of diabetes that happens when you eat too much and you do not exercise enough. This is, there's not a word to describe this. This is not a tragedy. This is something beyond a tragedy. Because at that age, when you should be being guided by your parent, your guardians and your parents to eat the right thing, to do the right thing, to move in the right way so your body will grow into a stable kind of platform so that you will be able to interact properly with the outside world, you are already in a state of substantial metabolic decline. What kind of life are you going to have? I'll tell you, you're going to be managed by the healthcare system for your entire life. This is depressing. This is a life that you're not going to be able to experience the possibility, the full range of possibilities of what you as an individual experience if at that age, or if at 3 or 4 you already have back pain, your eyes already have eye strain. And in fact, the children are being treated for sleep disturbances because they're using these devices too much. And inadequate sleep can cause all kinds of diseases, including apparently cancer. And even worse, developmental delay is occurring because of these devices. So you're taking a child who really, children, if you leave them alone, generally speaking, they will be able to develop themselves pretty well because that's what the species has been doing for the past 200,000 years. But now what's happening is these devices are coming in and they are dragging children in the wrong direction. And because everyone is doing it, and because it's part of the consensus reality, it's very easy to get into that stream of experience and to allow that to occur. So when it comes to self-diagnosis, the most important thing to do is to find out what you are addicted to. And it is very easy to find out what you're addicted to, because whatever it is you're addicted to is the thing you cannot let go of. The thing that you cannot let go of. Something that if you do not have it for whatever period of time you don't have it, you start to think about it. You begin to dream about it. You begin to fantasize about it. You start to read about it. You start to talk about it. It is the subject that takes over your awareness, because it is the thing that you have chosen as your Ishta Devata. The Ishta Devata, what does the word Ishta mean? Ishta means desired. Ishta means the thing that you crave. Vara Ishta. So the thing that you most want is the Ishta. So whatever that might be, that is the thing that you're addicted to. So before you even try to get off of the addiction, the first thing that you need to do is be able to identify that and admit it to yourself. Admit that you have a problem. One of my nephews recently admitted to himself, thank God, after several years, that he has a problem with alcohol. It had to happen. He was only willing to admit it to himself after he had completely smashed up his own vehicle and smashed up someone else. Thank God nobody was damaged. So he got off relatively lightly from the court system. But at least now he finally got to that place where he had sunk low enough that he could not pretend anymore. So this applies to all of everybody, and it could be anything. It could be a substance, because Ayurveda is all about guna. Guna means qualities. And we all need to look in ourselves and find out what qualities we have. That's why we talk so much in Ayurveda about prakriti. And people talk a lot about vata, pitta, and kapha, which is important, but it's even more important to be thinking about gunas. And they're very simple. There are many gunas in Ayurveda, but 3 pairs of gunas are the most important in the context of being healthy. Number 1, in particular, is hot and cold. Some people's bodies are always hot. Even when it's cold outside, they're not disturbed by the cold. They can generate heat on the inside. Some people's bodies are always cold. Even when it's warm outside, they still have some trouble. The circulation to their peripheral digits, the fingers and toes, is not completely adequate. There's always a sensation that they could get a little more heat into those extremities. So this is an important thing to know about yourself, and it is not so difficult. Anyone who has ever experienced heat and cold, and the climate of your area here is extreme heat and extreme cold. So it should be pretty obvious to you by this point, what is your nature? Are you more on the cold side or more on the hot side? Based on that, it is up to you to acknowledge that and to understand that if you want to be healthy, you have to figure out a way to make sure that you are warm in the winter, and not simply by eating a bunch of extra masala. Yes, temporarily this will cause more heat to go to your extremities, but it may not be good for the rest of you. Certainly there are shortcut ways to get more heat into your system, but those shortcut ways may be expensive. My mentor used to say, and we're talking about more than 30 years ago, that this is a country that runs on Ram Bharose. But he also used to say, Ram Bharose is very expensive. Instead of simply doing things right, you sit by and say, agar Bhagwan chahe to ho jayega. But वहाँ जाकर कुछ करना है, and then maybe maybe something will happen. Manushya yatna Ishvara Krupa. But people forget about the Manushya Yatna part. Please, the human being should have put in some effort. And they're all thinking of Ishvara Krupa. Bas, Bhagawan, bachao, bachao, I need this, I need that, I need the other. But do something first. And then expect Bhagawan to assist you a little bit instead of sitting down, unless you're performing the Ajgar sadhana. Then do the Ajgar sadhana, which means you lie down on the ground, period. Are you hungry? It doesn't matter. You're a python. Pythons don't move. Lying on the ground. Maybe somebody will come feed you. Maybe not. Are you worried about that? No, because you're performing the Ajgar sadhana. But actually, people are not willing to do that either. They're not willing to have Vishwas in Bhagawan, but they're willing to demand from Bhagawan. Ye kis kisam ke kanun hai? Ye kaun si nyaya hai? So, the first thing is to perform some yatna. And the first yatna, the first effort is figure out, am I hot or am I cold? And if I am, one way or the other, what can I do that is not going to be detrimental to me, that is going to assist me to maintain either the heat or the cold that I need to remain in a state of samatha. That word sama means, well, it's very much like the English word same. And it doesn't mean same, but it means balanced, in a state of equilibrium, in a state of homeostasis. So, the Sushruta Samhita, which is one of the Brihatrayi, defines health in this way. Samadosha, samagnischa, samadhatu malakriyaha, prasanna atmaindriya manaha, swastyam ityabidhiyate. Swastya comes from the word swasta. Sta means to be established in, sta tishta, and swa means your own self. If you are going to be healthy, you have to have a sense of self. You have to have a sense that you are established in yourself. You have to have an understanding of what your self is if you can have hope to be established in that self. And in order to be established in that self, what does Sushrut Acharya say that you should do? Samadosha samagnischa samadhatu malakriyaha. All of your physiological processes should be balanced. They should be in harmony. That doesn't mean they should be static. Sometimes we think of homeostasis as being a situation where things are static, not moving. This is a dynamic balance because we're interacting with the external world. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's dry. Sometimes there's lots of people, sometimes there's nobody, sometimes there's a big plate of food, sometimes there is only some water to drink. We are always having to adapt. What we want to do is to be able to adapt as seamlessly as possible to all of these changes. And it makes a big difference as to how we interact with the world, as to what kind of changes we are able to adapt to. A good place to begin this is all too often what happens in the modern world, and it doesn't matter what country you're in, but currently we're in Bharatavarsha, so we'll talk about Bharatavarsha. Very commonly what people do is they get up in the morning and the first thing they do is they have some chai. Understandable because they want to wake up. There are other ways to wake up. But the problem with having chai, especially because chai, I mean, this is chini to dalna hi hoga. And immediately, therefore, you are pushing up your blood sugar. And immediately the blood sugar, after it goes up, will come down again. And when there's not enough blood sugar, you will not be able to think because your brain cannot store glucose. And then you will be tempted to take something else, a biscuit or some more chai or something else that will push your blood sugar up again. And then all day long, this is what's going to be happening. And then we don't expect that your organism is going to be able to withstand this indefinitely before it stops responding. And it all starts from the beginning of the day. Interestingly enough, the earlier in the day you have your first cigarette, if you're a smoker, the greater the likelihood that you will get lung cancer. Why? Because you are introducing that poison into the system immediately. So now the system has to react to it immediately. Now there's suddenly a challenge to the system. Instead of letting the system slowly accelerate. If you get into your car and you turn it on and you immediately drive at as fast as you can, your car is going to wear out a lot faster than if you let it warm up a little bit before you start to drive at a certain speed. If that's the case with your vehicle, why would that be any different than with your organism? If an athlete immediately jumps out and tries to do their sport at the top speed, they will damage something because their muscles are not warm. This applies to your organism also. You have to warm up in the morning. You don't want to heat up in the morning. You want to warm up in the morning. You want to train the organism to alter itself slowly. The more that you make things move like this, the more your experience of the day is going to be like this. The high that doesn't last very long, the low that drops lower than you know how to deal with. And you did this by virtue, part of the reason, not the only reason, but you started off the process because you started your day in such a way that you employed an external tool to kickstart yourself instead of slowly and deliberately increasing your momentum so that you could get up to the speed that you needed to be at in order to do what you needed to do. Of course, one of the reasons why people do this is because they get up late, not very long before they have to be active. If they were to get up within at least an hour, preferably a couple of hours before they have to be active, then they have time for the organism to develop some momentum on its own. But in order to do that, they have to go to bed earlier. And if they have to go to bed earlier, then that means they can't be eating dinner at 10 p.m. And then if they're not eating dinner at 10 p.m., then they're not eating dinner with any of their friends because all of them are eating dinner at 10 p.m. Now you're depressed because now you can't go, now your social life has gone to hell. Now you have no friends anymore because your friends say, you've become some sort of holy person. So there is also that derision factor. Gali sunna parte. So not only are you not eating with your friends, but inki moon to be gali sunna parte. That's also even more depressing. So then you fall back into that process of cooperating with them instead of simply doing what your body wants to do. If you want to be healthy, you have to do what your body wants to do and not what everybody thinks that they want you to do for their convenience. Maybe you don't go to bed every night at 8 a.m. and go get up at 4 a.m., though that's a really good way to do things. But maybe you also don't go to bed at midnight every night and hope to get up at 6 or 7 a.m. and have had enough sleep that you will be able to function properly. So before we even start to think about, before we even start to think about taking your pulse or doing some other kind of fancy self-diagnosis, you have to ask yourself, what am I doing that is not cooperating with my organism? If you want to be healthy, you have to cooperate with your organism. My mentor was very clear, and he said repeatedly, and it is no less true now than it was when he told me the first time 40 years ago, it is always better to live with reality. because if you do not, you can be sure that reality